Again, Brandy Bird, I'm the city's transit consultant and have been since 2018. And I should say, have the pleasure of working with Mayor Gilmore and Councilwoman Green and Claire and Gina McGrath as well on this project. It's very much a team effort, and we all work very well together as a team and contribute to the overall success of the project. So I was just here before you last year in June, so it's been almost a year since I gave you an update on DCTA. And just as a quick recap, these were the initial goals that were outlined by the City Council when we started this project almost 4 years ago. And I just want to point out that all of these goals really focus on bringing greater value to Lewisville residents. And as a reminder, Lewisville is the largest contributor to DCTA. So just as a comparison, Lewisville contributes $12.8 million on an annual basis to DCTA. Denton is actually 10.8, so about 2 million less, and Highland Village 1.1 million. So just to give you an understanding of the overall investments that y'all are making in DCTA. And then just to recap where we've come from in this effort. So in the fall of 2018, we worked to develop consensus amongst the member cities, passed legislation to restructure the board. Some of this is old hat for you, but just as a reminder, implemented an admin fee policy for all contract service. Previous to that, there was some subsidization that was happening of contract service by the member cities, and then implemented a TRIP program to fund local infrastructure projects, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then since I was last before you, we have worked to replace the inefficient bus routes with Go Zone service. That's the microtransit service that's running in the city of Lewisville. As part of that service, we also expanded the hours and added Sunday service as well as 365-day-a-year service. So service previously on the bus routes did not run on holidays or Sundays, and that's been added. And then as well added Castle Hills Go Zone service with the recent annexation of Castle Hills. And then there have been some recent board appointments and some staff leadership changes that have happened as well. So Judge Eads, the County Commissioners Court, appointed the judge to serve as one of their county appointees to the DCTA board, and that's been a real positive addition to that board to have that direct link between the Commissioners Court and their goals and the DCTA board. And then also the CEO of DCTA, Raymond Suarez, resigned recently, and so the board is undergoing a national search for that CEO position currently. Also, I just wanted to give you a quick view of the previous bus service that was running in the city of Lewisville, because now we're going to talk about Go Zone, and it helps, I think, to have that in mind. Can we? Thank you, Claire. I appreciate that. So the DCTA Go Zone service, as you remember, this was just launched in September of last year, so we're just going on now 7 months of this service. So in the terms of transit, that's very new service, very much still in the ramp-up period. It replaced the existing Connect fixed route service in Lewisville and some of the routes in Denton. Also extended the service, as we mentioned a few moments ago. The hours are much longer, and the addition of Sunday service as well as holiday service. And then Castle Hills launched in January of 2022.
60 hours a week, no Sundays, holidays, to 96 hours a week. So you've got, what is that, 60%, 70% increase in number of hours.
Yes.
We went from 60 to 90 to 96 as far as hours of service, and of course expanded it to all of the city, not just the corridor that it was touching previously.
Yes. So. Oh, please, Kristen, please.
Some of these numbers specifically to tag along with what TJ was saying. So previously with our Connect service, counting everyone within a quarter mile of the Connect service, it served just under 60,000 people, residents, and just over 2,200 businesses and almost 25,000 employees. With the implementation of Go Zone, we've taken that to over 90,000 residents served,
Absolutely. I think it's really powerful. Yes.
You said 365 days. When did that change? Because I know we didn't have any service on Christmas.
With the launch of GoZone in September. So GoZone service was operating on Christmas Day. Now the Connect bus routes were still operating at that time as well. And so Connect service has never operated on holidays. Thank you, Claire. So this slide just gives you a feel, and this is not just in the city of Lewisville, this is agency-wide. So for DCTA, this is showing you current ridership numbers from September through February for Connect, which is the bus service, and then the GoZone ridership as well. So you can see starting in the November timeframe, the combination of the Connect bus service and GoZone exceeded pre-pandemic ridership levels for the first time, which that's very uncommon across the country. Most agencies are still 50 to 60% down in ridership across the country. So this is a major accomplishment for DCTA. And certainly the launch of GoZone was a contributing factor because we're seeing a large increase in ridership numbers. And then for the city of Lewisville specifically, we have ridership numbers because Lewisville and Highland Village is a combined zone. So we have ridership numbers for that combined zone in Lewisville and Highland Village. And it's trending about 8,000 rides per month on GoZone in the Lewisville Highland Village zone. And we're really seeing those numbers increasing on a monthly basis. So we certainly see in the Lewisville Highland Village zone that we're on trend to meet or exceed the pre-pandemic ridership levels on a GoZone. And so because it's been so successful, we're starting to see some service issues. And this is something that TJ and Kristen have been very proactive about, and the DCTA board has already given staff direction and will be taking some action in the next couple of months to invest further resources in. So you can see the ridership numbers. This is from September on the far left through a forecasted number for March on the right. And you can just see the dramatic increase in ridership. This is much higher numbers than what VIA projected with their initial proposal. And so that is why there's some additional investments that need to be made this quickly. And I think that when the board was contemplating this decision, we always knew that this could be a problem, that it could be so successful that it might take more money. But that certainly is a good problem to have, is how we felt about it at the time. And I'll let the mayor and Kristen add to that, but I would assume that that's still your philosophy, that because it's been so successful, we're very pleased with the ridership numbers that we've seen.
I would just say that what I feel like the numbers are showing us is that there was a pent-up demand in Lewisville for public transportation, and so I think that the GoZone has allowed us to serve that need, where the Connect service is, I'm not quite sure, we certainly wouldn't be able to get there this quickly, but I'm not sure if we'd be able to get there, period.
And I think what we have to always remember is you've got to go back to the agency runs with a budget. It only has so much money. And so the question is, how do you move the most people within that budget? Now, it may be that we find data in these GoZone trips that says, hey, if we put a Connect bus back into Lewisville between these locations, that could be cheaper.
You think?
Yeah, I'm just saying, if the data shows that, I don't think the board, DCTA board, would have an issue with putting it back in if the data were to show that. Right now, it's not.
We're not trained, like up in the northeast and stuff, to go catch a bus.
Right.
Or go get the train, you know.
And we've talked about this
Or-
because Councilmember Jones comes from Chicago and has a transit background. The key here is let's get people used to using public transit. And if GoZone is the way that gets them out of their cars and gets them to thinking about transit as a tool, then it's not as big a step to just move over to a Connect bus if that Connect bus makes sense for that part of the system. I agree with you in the fact that we are not a dense urban environment, so we don't have the ability and long distances. So we don't have short distances with lots of people, which is where the most successful transit operations actually live. When you're spread out and have low head count, there's a lot of inefficiency that's just built into the way our city was built. So we have to combat that as well.
So DCTA staff has shown the board some numbers that it may take an additional $1 million investment for the rest of this fiscal year to get the service levels back up, which I think the board is willing to do and is going to be contemplating that at its next board meeting next month. But the good news is that sales tax numbers just keep increasing. So DCTA really has the revenues to be able to sustain additional investments in Go Zone service. And they've gotten a huge influx of federal money as well from ARPA and then the IIJA. And so they really have additional federal dollars that can be spent on these investments as well.
And the way the contract is set up with VIA is it's a budget of hours. So we basically paid for X number of hours throughout the year, because in the summertime it'll go down, and in the wintertime it'll go down with the holidays, or there's flexibility there. So some months they're using more hours than others. So what we tasked them with this past month was to let's make sure that we're doing all we can to shift some hours forward. We've got to get, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, some of the complications that we are having with GoZone.
Yes, so clear. Thank you. So this slide is just showing you the seats unavailable metric. And so agency-wide in February, that number had risen to 11%, which the board has said is higher than we would like, and we'd like to see that number be brought down. And so that's what the additional investment, bringing those hours forward and then potentially making some budget decisions to make some additional investments for this fiscal year.
And the thing that really I think concerned us is that February was a short month, and we lost a couple of days to freezing road conditions. So I'm really worried that 11% actually is a low number, and we're probably maybe closer to the 15% number. That
What is the timeline on the fix that needs to be done?
So it's usually a 1 to 2 week process, because it's a matter of freeing up hours. So the way VIA sets their schedules is that they tell all their drivers, here comes the next week, we need you at these times. So they figure out what they think the usage is going to be based on their algorithm. And so they just push and make more of the hours available for drivers. So it can be turned around within a week is my understanding, but it might take 2 for them to decide.
Yes, I was going to say the good news is it's very nimble. So if the board gives that direction, they can make those adjustments very quickly. And
I
then,
just want to say one thing about that.
Yes, sir.
I take the goes on. I got people, and I make sure I direct them to TJ. The big thing about those seats unavailable is I hope they're looking at the times, because the times around rush hour, I've seen personally that it will tell you, and I'll send it to TJ that there are no rides available. Now, part of that may be fleet trying to get vehicles in the area, but that key time, I'm like, I don't need the goes on, but there are people who do. And when I see those seats unavailable, that's the first thing I think of. And that may be someone's first time using GoZone, which is not a good entrance into using it. So we need to make sure we get those numbers down. We need to figure out what a percentage is that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Obviously, 10% is not acceptable. And one thing I'll just say, I lacked the faith in DCTA in the past, but I'm looking forward to us going forward, and I hope that we can get these numbers so we can see what's going on and we can see whether there's an improvement.
I think the goal is, part of the challenge is building that matrix is that to have seats available at 8 o'clock for 600 people is probably not a realistic expectation. To have seats available within an hour window from 7 to 8 o'clock to be able to handle that bolus of ridership is probably a more realistic number, because the whole point is being able to flex your fleet. Right, because if you build out it's like mall parking lots, right? You build that mall parking lot for, worst case for December 24th, but then you've got all this capacity that you're paying for that's not being used throughout the day. So that's the question that we're having to really drill down on.
And that's what I'm hoping the data will show.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't prepare for everything, but if there's a reason, obviously your window is going to climb on your way.
And I think some of that comes to education. We need to really put in education that this is not Uber. It is a public transportation tool, and see if we can't get the app to also maybe nudge people. Hey, can you do we noticed you keep trying to do 8 o'clock. Could we nudge you to 7:30 or 7:45. So those are some of the conversations we're looking at.
Absolutely, and Councilwoman Green actually brought this up at the last board meeting and requested Via and staff to look at the possibility of pre-booking a ride to address that exact issue, Councilman, so that if there's a volume of people who need to all be at work at 8 a.m., they can stagger those trips based on the number of vehicles available in order to get people there on time. So that's a functionality that staff is investigating currently. Thank you, Claire. And this just shows also over that time frame, the estimated time of arrival has creeped up to 22 minutes as well. And that's a little higher than the board would like to see. They would certainly like to see that in the 15 to 20 minute range. Keep in mind that previous bus service in Lewisville was at a 30, 45, and 60 minute headways. So even at 22 minutes, this is still much better service for your residents. But again, the board has set lofty goals and they want to see that number move down.
And I think that's the number that can flex.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to wait longer,
Yeah.
it's more people.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the TRIP program, we talked about a little bit earlier, but you'll remember this is a program that the board pushed for. It's basically a give back program to cities of 15% of the net available fund balance to allow you to use those dollars to build transit supportive projects like sidewalks, trail projects, things that help get people to the transit system and help them be able to better utilize it. And so in the first year of the program, Lewisville received $3.8 million. In the second year, you just got your updated numbers, $5 million is the amount that's available to the city. So $8.8 million just in 2 years of this program. And again, the way the program is set up, the board has the opportunity to make the investments they need to make in the budget process, and then this is just 15% of the remaining fund balance. So it's very flexible, but because DCTA has had large increases in revenues from sales tax and federal funding, these numbers have been pretty large. And staff has been working hard to put them to use. So far, the projects that have been submitted to DCTA is the Valley Ridge Trail construction, the A-Train Rail Trail Southern Extension design, and the complete street design for Southwest Parkway. And that was really all with just a portion of the initial $3.8 million. They haven't started spending the $5 million yet, so lots more projects to come.
Oh, I'm sure they have. We just haven't heard it yet.
That's right, exactly. We knew you were.
We are anticipating putting an application for 2 potential projects we're considering. One would be, so the A-Train Rail Trail Southern Extension design. The construction, we've received funding from COG, but it may have some cost overruns, so that may be something we go after, is to help with the construction. And then the other component would be, this is just for the design of the complete street on Southwest Parkway, would be for the construction of that. So those may be future. We're still looking at our projects and where we need to plug in funding, but those are our thought processes right now.
Super.
And so far we've talked about where we've been and what's been accomplished to date. Now we're really going to talk about some upcoming decisions that the board has to make. The first of which is the improvement of GO Zone service. So the additional investments that we just talked about to bring those service levels back up. Again, because of high ridership, which is a good problem to have, but those service levels need to be addressed. The next, of course, is the CEO search that we discussed. The board is going through that process. They're doing a national search to attract the best talent that they can to DCTA. And then expansion of GO Zone to cover the entire city of Lewisville. And we'll talk more about that in a minute, but there's some gaps in provision of GO Zone service that Mayor Gilmore and Councilwoman Green have asked the DCTA staff to cost out so the board can look at that in the future. And then a fare policy for GO Zone and the bus service. That's a decision point that's coming up in June. And so I want to give you a preview of some of the things that are being discussed there. Also increasing frequencies on the A-Train. So the train currently runs at 30-minute frequencies, and that was even an initiative that was pushed by the board to bring those frequencies down. It had been upwards of 45 to 60 minutes at one point during the pandemic. But there's opportunities to get that down to 20 minutes, 15 minutes. DART's Green Line is at 15-minute frequencies, and so that may, that's certainly an aspirational goal, but it requires infrastructure investment. It would require double tracking of the A-Train along that entire corridor, which could get expensive. And so that's something that Mayor Gilmore and Councilwoman Green have asked the DCTA staff and consultants to look at, to bring cost numbers back to see what kind of investments are required. And this is a long-term goal, of course, but something that we want to understand what's it going to take to get those frequencies down. And then there's an opportunity to extend the A train at the southern end down to downtown Carrollton. It's only about 1.7 miles, but that extension would connect with DART's Silver Line, and I'll show you a map of that project in a moment. But the Silver Line is under construction. It's a DART project that runs from basically Plano, Richardson, all the way to DFW Airport. So this extension would connect the A train down to the Silver Line, and residents could either go to the airport or to Plano, Richardson. It opens up, there's a lot of businesses along that corridor, so it really opens up a lot of job opportunities for residents as well. So that's an exciting opportunity, and one that the board is, again, pushing staff and consultants to bring back cost numbers so that they can make some decisions on the investments that the board wants to make. And then as well, the possible addition of a station on the A train in Corinth. Corinth has long been talking about joining DCTA in some form or fashion, and adding a station in Corinth. It's something that is just very early in the discussions. It could open up the opportunity for your residents to get to NCTC, but there's some trade-offs that are associated with that. So your representative, Mayor Gilmore, and Councilman Green have been very open to the idea of discussing it, but obviously protective of Lewisville's interests on the board and in the agency as well. And then continuing the TRIP funding beyond the initial 5 years. So the initial vote to create the TRIP program was just a 5-year commitment in the long-range financial plan. So ensuring that that program continues beyond those initial 5 years. There's a lot of important projects that really help people to get to the DCTA system and better use those services. If you don't have sidewalks, it's very difficult for people to utilize the GO zone or get to the train station. So those projects are equally important. Can you scroll down, Claire? So this is the GO zone, zones currently in yellow. So the city of Lewisville zones and Castle Hills as well. The area in purple is what's not covered by GO zone. And these initial zones were really developed based on covering the additional, or covering the previous bus routes, and then also expanding to include the denser areas in Lewisville. But there is this portion in the middle, and because the DCTA board has made the decision to make additional investments in the city of Denton by providing both fixed route bus and GO zone, the mayor and Councilwoman Green have been careful to ask that some additional investments be made in Lewisville as well, so that there's that equity that's being portrayed amongst all the member cities. And this is a perfect example of one of those initiatives. So staff and VIA are working on what would it cost to serve this additional area in purple, so that the entire city of Lewisville would be covered by GO zone service.
And
So
the big purple one area, it won't be all of that, but I mean, those three on the bottom left side, most likely, the Josie Lane on the far right, and then we might pick up a couple of other small spots, but you know, we're not going to drop people off in the middle of Leela, but you can't get into Leela as the map is set right now, so we can extend that over to the Leela doorway.
yes, and we are expecting that this would be minimal cost to add these additional areas, but it would give you the ability to ensure that every single one of your residents has access to GO zone service. And then I wanted to give you a preview for the GO zone fare policy that the board is currently discussing. This is not something that's going to be decided until June, so there's some time, and you have time to give your input as well to your DCTA board representatives. But currently, the GO zone promotional fare is at 75 cents. So that's the current fare if you were to take a GO zone trip. The bus passes, the way they're currently structured, an AM pass or a PM pass is $1.50. So assuming that you're taking the bus previously to work and back, it was a $3 trip. So that's really what the board is looking at, is setting GO zone at a comparable level so that it would also be a $3 round trip to work and back. $1.50 per trip is what the board is contemplating. And then the consultants and staff are recommending that there be a mileage-based fare as well, because especially in the city of Denton, they're seeing citizens take some longer trips that could be served by the existing Connect bus service. And so their thought was to encourage people to take longer trips by bus and the shorter trips by GoZone. That only makes sense, of course, in the city of Denton, where they still have both bus service and GoZone. So Mayor Gilmore pushed that as part of this fare policy, it was important that there not be any additional mileage-based fee for residents in Lewisville, because your citizens no longer have access to fixed route bus service, and so they shouldn't have to pay more for basically the replacement service, which is GoZone. And then this is the Silver Line alignment that I talked about a minute ago. This is just a possible future project that the board is contemplating. And the dashed line from DFW Airport over to Shiloh Road, that's the alignment for the Silver Line. So you can see where the green line, and thus the A train, would extend down to downtown Carrollton and connect to the Silver Line. So it would just open up a lot of destinations for your residents to take the train and then be able to reach a lot of other destinations around the region. So this project is an expensive one as well, based on the initial cost estimates, but there's just a lot of opportunities in all the projects that we just talked about for DCTA to make some investments, and the board to make some decisions about where best to spend the dollars to provide the most opportunities for your residents.
I'm gonna put a pin in it real quick.
Yes.
We're about out of time for the workshop. We can come back to it if you have additional questions. I did not have anybody talk to me about anything on consent agenda. Was there anything that council needed to have pulled or wanted to discuss? I was feeling generous because typically we're all pretty well informed by staff on what's going on the agenda. So, all right, with that, I think we're gonna head over to the other room. Council, if you do have questions, Brandy's contact information is available, and of course Kristen and I. But that's kind of the update, and there's a lot of change going on over there now that they've got the executive suite changed out. We're out looking to get that fixed. So, Ms. Bird, thank you so much. Appreciate the overview.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Good evening. It is 7:01 on Monday, April 4th. I call this meeting of the Lewisville City Council to order, and to lead us in the invocation, Council Member Cade.
Will you please stand and join me? I'd like to take this moment of silence and for us to keep the Ukraine people in our hearts. Amen.
If you'll please join me in the pledges to our flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. All right. Well, it looks like I get to do some proclamations today, so I'm going to wander up here. If there are particular folks for these, if you wouldn't mind joining me at the podium. When I call out whichever one I'm doing, in which order. And the magic genies just make it work. Thank you guys in the tech room. I appreciate that. All right. The first one today is for National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Do I have anyone from? Awesome. And you are? TJ. Nice to meet you. All right. So, whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical service, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the City of Lewisville Police Fire Communications Center, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services, and whereas public safety telecommunicators of the City of Lewisville have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients, now, therefore, I, T.J. Gilmore, Mayor of the City of Lewisville, Texas, and on behalf of the Lewisville City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of April 10th through 16th, 2022 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in the City of Lewisville in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and our citizens safe. Proclaim this day, the 4th of April, 2022. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Would you like to say anything?
Thank you.
Even better. We'll get a quick photo. Thank you so much for all you do. Those folks work hard, I'm telling you. Next up, Community Development Week. You got a 30-minute? Okay. All right, so come on. That way we get a photo there. Whereas the week of April 11th through 15th, 2022 has been designated as National Community Development Week by the National Community Development Association to celebrate the Community Development Block Grant Program, and whereas the CDBG program is celebrating 48 years of providing local governments with the resources required to meet the needs of persons of low and moderate income, and CDBG funds are used by thousands of neighborhood-based nonprofit organizations throughout the nation to address pressing neighborhood and human service needs, and whereas the CDBG program provides annual funding and flexibility to local communities to provide decent, safe, and sanitary housing, a suitable living environment, and economic opportunities to low and moderate income people. And whereas over the past 5 years, our community has received a total of $4,008,076, which was used to fund the following activities: Alvin Turner Park, land purchase for Triangle Park, Children's Advocacy Center outdoor courtyard, minor housing rehab projects, first-time homebuyers assistance programs, Morningside sewer line replacements, public service funding to prevent, prepare, and respond to COVID-19, public services funding to serve Lewisville residents by partnering with 24 local nonprofit agencies. Now, therefore, I, T.J. Gilmore, Mayor of the City of Lewisville, on behalf of the Lewisville City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of April 11th through the 15th, 2022 as Community Development Week, and urge all citizens to join us in recognizing the Community Development Block Grant Program on its 48th anniversary and the important role it plays in our community. Hereby proclaim this 4th day of April, 2022. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know, CDBG, of course, is a little bit near and dear to my heart because it's the first board I actually ever served on. And the amount of impact it has on our residents cannot be understated. It's great to have a team out there working hard to find ways to help support our community where it needs it. All right, and now we have Water Conservation Month. I thought that was every month.
Every month.
All right, but it's special this month. So, whereas water is a vital and precious resource for the City of Lewisville and is necessary to sustain the economy, lifestyle desired by the residents, public health, and general welfare, and whereas the City of Lewisville and the Office of Sustainability work to educate residents and raise awareness about the importance of water conservation through public outreach and the Residential Water Conservation Credit Program, and whereas the City of Lewisville supports and participates in the Wyland National Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation during the month of April, and whereas every business, industry, school, and resident can make a difference when it comes to conserving water and thus promote a healthy economy and community. And whereas to effectively adhere to the Lewisville 2025 Vision Plan Update and Sustainability Action Plan, every effective means to promote wise water use and prevent water waste should be employed to ensure a sustainable water supply for future generations. Now, therefore, I, T.J. Gilmore, Mayor of the City of Lewisville, along with the members of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2022 as Water Conservation Month, proclaim this 4th day of April. Outstanding. Thank you so much. Anything you want to say? And folks, on the topic of water conservation, just because I grew up in the West, I don't know if you've seen in the news how crazy it is, but Lake Mead, Lake Powell, some of the biggest reservoirs along the Colorado are virtually empty. They're at historic lows, 1,000-year droughts. And that's not only their water supply, but it is a power supply for millions of residents. So I know we seem to feel like we have a lot of water here, but all it takes is a couple of bad years of rain. So make sure you got your sprinklers handled, make sure you got all those drips and leaks. And we've even got a program that'll help you with that. So if you are a resident and you want to learn more about how to conserve water, we've got a great team that'll help you. All right. It's been so long since we've done those. Item D, Visitor Citizen Forum. Speakers must address their comments to the mayor rather than to individual council members or staff. Speakers should speak clearly and state their name and address prior to beginning their remarks. Speakers will be allowed 5 minutes for testimony. Speakers making personal, impertinent, profane, or slanderous remarks may be removed from the meeting. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stamping of feet, whistles, yells, clapping, and similar demonstrations will not be permitted. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the City Council is restricted from discussing or taking action on items not listed on the agenda. Action can only be taken at a future meeting. City Secretary, do we have any public comment?
No, sir, we do not.
All right. Item E, Consent Agenda. All of the following items on the consent agenda are considered to be self-explanatory by the council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so request. For a citizen to request removal of an item, a speaker card or e-comment must be filled out and submitted to the city secretary. City Secretary, do we have any requests to remove something from consent?
No, sir, we do not.
All right. City Council?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
All right.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, if you would please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Item F, regular hearing. Number 7, consideration of a variance to the Lewisville City Code, Section 2201, regarding waiving a portion of the fees associated with American Amateur Youth Baseball Alliance's tournament as requested by Tracy Black, General Manager, Flower Mound Youth Sports Association. The Flower Mound Youth Sports Association is hosting the American Amateur Youth Baseball Alliance tournament on June 12th through June 23rd, 2022. Over 3,600 youth participants will participate in the tournament. A sizable portion of the event will take place at Railroad Park and Lewisville Lake Park baseball complexes. A portion of the tournament has been held in Lewisville for the past 15 years, except for 2020 from the impacts of COVID-19. The proposed waiver of $14,060 is based on procedures established to meet the financial support and sustainability strategy for cost recovery and includes a waiver of 50% of estimated fees for the tournament. Approved waivers were 75% of fees for the 2019 and 2021 tournaments. Previously, waivers were 100% of estimated fees for the tournament. It is recommended that the City Council approve the variance as set forth in the caption above. And Council, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the variance.
Second.
Any discussion? Council, if you'd please vote. Motion passes 5-0.
Bless you.
Item 8, consideration of a variance to the Lewisville City Code, Section 2-201 fee schedule regarding a waiver of athletic field rental fees, and temporary event permit fees associated with the Battle of the Badge Benefit Softball Tournament. Since 2005, the Lewisville Citizens Police Academy Alumni Association has been conducting the Battle of the Badge Benefit Softball Tournament. The Lewisville Police and Fire Departments and other local fire and police departments compete in the tournament to raise money for Spirit of a Hero and the Lewisville Citizen Police Academy Alumni Association. Battle of the Badge will take place on October 15th, 2022 at Railroad Park. Associated fees for the event are estimated to be $1,453. In previous years, City Council has approved the waiver of all fees associated with the tournament. A waiver for 100% of the fees is requested and is recommended that the City Council approve the variance as set forth in the caption above.
I move that we approve the variance set forth in the caption.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, any discussion?
Just one question. What's the record?
Between police and fire?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Do we know?
It's pretty solid for the fire department.
Chief Deaver's over there real quiet, so okay. I'll just leave it alone.
Chief Deaver, he drives a red Ford Explorer, okay? It's just...
At the speed limit with my seatbelt at all times.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Council, if you would please vote. Motion passes 5-0. resolved. Item 9, consider and act upon adoption of a resolution authorizing the acquisition of fee simple title 2.481 acres of land described as the South Ventnor Survey, abstract number 1309, City of Lewisville, Denton County, Texas, located at 1101 West Main Street for the construction of the Lewisville Public Safety Complex, determining the public use and public necessity of such acquisition, authorizing the appointment of an appraiser and negotiator as necessary, authorizing the city manager or her designee to establish just compensation for the property to be acquired in accordance with all laws, authorizing the city manager or her designee to take all steps necessary to acquire the needed property rights in compliance with all applicable laws and resolutions, and authorizing the city attorney or her designee to institute condemnation proceedings to acquire the property rights if purchase negotiations are not successful, providing for repealing, savings, and severability clauses, and providing for an effective date. The proposed property to be acquired will be developed in conjunction with the Lewisville Public Safety Complex expansion located at the northwest corner of FM 1171 and North Valley Parkway. As required by Texas Property Code Section 21.0113, the city is required to first attempt to negotiate the necessary acquisitions from the landowners voluntarily through the making of a bona fide offer prior to filing any eminent domain procedure. It's recommended that the City Council consider and adopt the resolution as set forth in the caption above by using the following motion, which is prescribed by Texas Government Code Section 2206.053E. I move that the City of Lewisville, Texas adopt the resolution described in Agenda Item Number 9 and authorize the use of the power of eminent domain to acquire for public use the property described and depicted in Exhibit A attached to the resolution, said description and depiction being incorporated into this motion for all purposes to construct the Lewisville Public Safety Complex. We do have Mr. Eric Ferris, our Deputy City Manager, available for questions. Council?
I move that the City of Lewisville, Texas adopt the resolution described in Agenda Item Number 9 and authorize the use of the power of eminent domain to acquire the public use the property described and depicted in Exhibit A attached to the resolution, said description and depiction being incorporated into this motion for all purposes to construct the Lewisville Public Safety Complex.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Council, if you'll please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Item 10, consideration of an ordinance amending the Lewisville City Code, repealing Chapter 15, Article 8 in its entirety, amending Section 1535, maximum speed limits on specific streets, Section 1536, maximum speed limits near schools, Section 1587, limitations on turning around, Section 1588, certain turns prohibited, Section 15126, stopping, standing, or parking prohibited on specific streets, and Section 15127, prohibited parking on specific streets during specific hours. Castle Hills was annexed into the City of Lewisville on November 15, 2021. Chapter 15, Article 8 of the Lewisville City Code, adopted in December 2010, currently provides the ordinances supporting the traffic regulations for Castle Hills. Due to the annexation, a separate article for Castle Hills is no longer necessary. The purpose of the subject ordinance is to repeal Article 8 of Chapter 15 in its entirety and merge the traffic ordinances for Castle Hills into the Lewisville traffic ordinances. It's recommended that the City Council approve the ordinance set forth in the caption above. And we do have Mr. David Salmon, our city engineer, available for questions. If there are none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the ordinance. Second.
City Attorney?
This is an ordinance of the Lewisville City Council amending Chapter 15, Traffic and Vehicles by repealing Chapter 15, Article 8, Traffic Regulations in Castle Hills in its entirety and amending Section 15-35, maximum speed limits on specific streets, Section 15-36, maximum speed limit near schools, Section 15-87, limitations on turning around, Section 15-88, certain turns prohibited, Section 15-126, stopping, standing, or parking prohibited on specific streets, and Section 15-127, prohibited parking on specific streets during specific hours, providing for repeal or severability, penalty, and an effective date, and declaring an emergency.
Council, if you would please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Item 11, second reading. Consideration of an ordinance approving an amended and restated service and assessment plan for Josie Lane Public Improvement District. A public hearing on this ordinance, which approves the amended and restated preliminary service and assessment plan for the Josie Lane Public Improvement District, was held at the March 21st, 2022 City Council meeting. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the City Council approved the ordinance. The city charter requires 3 readings of an ordinance caption unless, among other things, the ordinance contains a statement of the nature of the emergency, which this ordinance did not. The third and final reading will be on April 18th, 2022. The ordinance will take effect immediately upon final passage. It's recommended that the city attorney provide the second reading of this ordinance caption.
This is an ordinance approving an amended and restated service and assessment plan for Josie Lane Public Improvement District.
All right. And we'll get one more of those. So, Councilmember Jones, we're now down to reports. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind kicking us off tonight?
Okay. City Council is accepting applications for board commissions and committees. The deadline for those applications is May 6th. You get those into our city secretary. See what you may be interested in. Get active and get involved in your city. This is your city, and we'd love to have you on board. That's all I have.
Was that a pun?
If it was, I didn't intend it to be.
Councilmember Cade? City Manager?
Yes, Mayor, I have some library activities for the week. Basic computer skills for adults, Wednesday, April 6th, 10 to 11:30 a.m. No registration required at the computer lab. TAG Teen Advisory Group for teens age 13 to 18, Thursday, April 7th, 6:30 to 7:30. Application required for new members, Teen Point. Baby Prom for children ages 0 to 3 with caregiver, Friday, April 8th, 10 to 10:45 a.m. No registration required at the Bennett Program Room. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Troyer?
Yes, Mayor, I have some information about the Lewisville Grand Theater activities. First of all, for performances, we have The Lightning Thief, the Percy Jackson musical, presented by our Productions Theater Company on April 6th through the 9th. This is being performed outdoors in Wayne Ferguson Plaza. And if anyone was here for First Friday, this past Friday, you could have seen them rehearsing, and it looks like it's going to be very interesting. So, the Lewisville Lake Symphony presents Symphonic Showcase on October 8th. That's an auspicious date for me. Anyway, Texas Tunes, Stephanie Urbina Jones and the Honky Tonk Mariachis, presented by the City of Lewisville, this coming Saturday night, April 9th. Acoustic Jam every Friday night from 6 to 9 in the theater, somewhere in the theater, presented by the Visual Art League of Lewisville. And then activities, Garden Secrets class, Butterfly Gardening, presented by Keep Lewisville Beautiful on April 7th. The Val Art Talk, Matthew Lee Shipper, presented by the Visual Art League of Lewisville on April 12th. And then there are some art exhibitions going on. Radiate, presented by Intuition Gallery, is on view through April 30th. And there's a reception to meet the artists on April 9th from 4 to 7. The Elementary East Art Exhibition, presented by the Lewisville Independent School District, is on view through April 9th. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. City Attorney? City Secretary?
No, sir.
How are we doing with the weather?
We're still under severe thunderstorm watch, so keep an eye on the weather tonight. Stay weather aware.
It's becoming a Monday night thing.
It seems like it. But I do want to announce that Emergency Management conducted a 20-hour community emergency response team training this weekend for 10 Lewisville residents, including residents from Castle Hills neighborhood. And we did this at Thrive this weekend, 20 hours of brutal training. So residents learn basic disaster skills so they can take care of themselves, their families, and they can help their neighbors.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's a great program. Chief?
Nothing, Mayor.
Nothing, Mayor.
All good?
No report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. How's that lake, speaking of water?
It's about 92.1% full. Current elevation is about 520.32 feet.
Thank you so much.
No report, Mayor.
Chief?
No report.
No report, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferris? Councilmember Green?
So the announcement that I wanted to make today has particular relevance after an incident that happened to me yesterday. I just wanted to share a brief story. Yesterday, we went out. My son had a game. When I got home, I don't know how it happened, but my front door was wide open. So my first thought is, oh my God, my dog. So I run in the house, and guess what? She's not there. She's taken off. I am so lucky that a neighbor found her and had her just 2 doors down because she is not microchipped. And we got really, really lucky this time. But I told myself, I have got to get her microchip because I've been putting it off for 2.5 years at this point. And then I looked at my media release and I said, hey, the city of Lewisville is having a microchip clinic on April 23rd. And the first 50 microchips that day, starting at 1 p.m. on April 23rd, the first 50 are free. So there's absolutely zero excuse not to get your animal microchipped. I believe after the first 50 are gone, they're only $15 to get them done. So super cheap to do it. Sounds like it's a pretty quick procedure, I assume. So I'm going to do this. So I hope everybody else is with me. Thank you.
That's awesome. I want to thank the fire department for the wonderful banquet, and the fire department does, and we haven't because of COVID, but does a end of the year recap, and I think something that our residents really, it's a staggering number, but the freeze of last year in February, in that 1 week, that was 10% of our total calls for service for the entire year happened in that 1 week, and while I know it's the fire department and that was the statistic I saw, I also just want to reiterate how grateful I am for the amazing city staff that we have, because it wasn't just the fire department out there dealing with the challenges of that event. We had, our parks department, we had our stormwater and all of our water department and public services. I mean, I saw and heard people out, literally putting out fires and figuratively putting out fires for that week. In a situation where their home might also have not had power. So I can't reiterate enough how proud I am of the staff and how glad I am to be here. But that kind of brought it home for me at the banquet, and it was a real pleasure to be there, Chief. Thanks for inviting us. On the 23rd, there are a couple more events to keep in mind. The Friends of Leela will be having a 5K. This is a great event. The last time they did one of these, it was one ale of a trail was the first one I went down to, and then they did a dam run, which I don't know if the Corps is ever going to let us do a dam run again, but it was a really good time. But this year it's a 5K, 6K. Sorry, it's a 6K. I think if you wanted to do 5, you could. But that's also going to be showcasing a new trail in Leela. So if you get the opportunity and want to do something early in the morning before you go to Colorpalooza, which will be the rest of the day, and they're looking for volunteers as well as opportunities if you want to bring your group or organization out. There's a lot of opportunities. A lot of people remember Colorpalooza as being chalk this way, and chalk art is kind of a big piece of this, but it's also a way for us to celebrate the diversity in our community, and I really like that aspect of what we do with Colorpalooza, so I'm hoping to see that continue to grow and expand, which it has done every year since we've kind of set that to be the mission, so I'm very excited about that. With that, do we have any items for closed session, City Manager? All right. So because there is no other business to take care of by state law, I can go ahead and I know we normally do this a different way, but if there's no additional business, we don't have to go jumping in and out of the voting thing. It just makes it simpler. I'm just going to go ahead and adjourn the meetings. So we are adjourned.